Welcome back for another helping of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles presented by Bolin Media. I am Ross Bolin here with Barrett Dudley. Barrett, what's good?
Oh, man. You know what? What's good is that I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I can't help myself, but I am geeked up that the NFL starts this week. I'm sorry. I am, but I am. Not to mention Texas plays Alabama on Saturday, and the fact that there's literally nothing that's really piquing my interest to a great degree on the old TV television tube.
Yeah,
just makes it I'm just so ready for my fiance to just be annoyed on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday again.
Yeah,
just really hammering it home with 4 annoyed nights a week. That's nice.
I think this is a fair topic for our TV and film show. This involves the television. You watch the sports on the television.
You do. Yeah,
Frankly, It's a miracle that you and I don't bring up sports, #sports, more often, considering how much time we spend watching them.
Yeah. I mean, and it's drama that you really just can't script.
It's like reality TV.
It really is. It really is. So that's what I've got teed up on the docket. Nice little Chiefs-Lions kickoff tomorrow. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
But no, I'm also look, man. Here's how dire it's gotten. Your boy's about to subscribe to Paramount Plus so I can watch Lioness.
Okay.
which is a show that I have I have a lot of interest in. Give me all female Black Ops teams all day long. I'm here for that. Written and created by Taylor Sheridan, the Yellowstone man himself. So, it's probably tight.
Sure.
It sounds cool. But I'm possibly subscribing to a new streaming app just so that I can get something new, injected into my veins.
Well, my desperation has reached new lows or highs, depending on how you want to look at it as well. But first, before I jump into that, one of the craziest things about the NFL and football season in general to me is how it's gone from Sunday to Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. They're occupying as many days on the calendar as possible now.
Well, and I mean, then you roll around to late season or Thanksgiving. There's at least 1 or 2 weeks where they give you Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
And they're really, that's what they're sitting around in the board meetings. They're like, can we get a football game on every day of the week?
And I mean,
because it would be the highest rated show every single night.
Look, it occurs to me that everybody needs something to watch. And not everybody is as into the fiction or nonfiction works of television the way that you and I are.
Sure.
And there are periods of every calendar year where you could occupy every free moment of your life watching sports if you really wanted to. The section of the year that always gets me is when
we just got
football overlaps with baseball, overlaps with basketball.
Oh, the good set. When
we're talking
really,
October.
Yeah.
That's absolute chaos in my home where there is not time for anything else.
Right.
But no, football especially.
I've been waiting all day for Sunday night.
Yeah, so you're ready. You're ready to rock.
Crank up the carry, baby.
Yeah. It helps that we have some things to look forward to this year as Houston Texans fans with a new coach and a new quarterback and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like we don't even acknowledge that you're a University of Texas alumnus. Alumnus?
Yeah, I think that works.
Isn't alumni the plural? I believe it is.
I think.
No one knows for sure, though.
I think actually alumni and alumnus can be used interchangeably.
I hope so. Because
but I am not positive.
I have enough vocabulary and pronunciation issues as it is.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, but Barrett went to UT, big Texas Longhorn fan.
Yeah.
I went to Texas State University, so my school has won one important football game in the history of the program, which happened this past weekend.
You're a real boy now. You're a real football team.
I feel like a real boy. And anyway, #sports. Okay, so
who'd y'all beat? Y'all beat Baylor?
Baylor, dude.
That's a huge dub.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of if people are asking, my mom went to Baylor, so she texted the family group text and she said, "Is it the Bobcats are really good or are the Bears really bad?" And I was like, "It's both."
I just realized we actually have a friend of the pod that's a divided household on that very game. I wonder how that went for them.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah.
The Roughs.
Yeah.
Well, I think he typically roots for Baylor.
He does.
So this had to have been a weird day for him, yeah. Anyway, outside of sports, I've obviously, just like everybody else, been looking for things to watch during this drought. And I ended up finishing, took 3 different viewing sessions, but I finished 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, ironically, my wife did not finish it. She passed out with 10 minutes left to go, and now she'll never know how it ends.
I think that's one where if you bought the VHS in like 1993, it was 2 tapes anyway.
Yeah.
So like three sittings isn't that bad. It's almost like meant to be too.
I mean, it's Stanley Kubrick's 1968 sci-fi classic, and it has a literal intermission.
Little intermish.
That lasts several minutes of just black screen.
Yeah.
It's very awkward.
Do you think, this is actually a good question. Do you think that we are close to returning to intermish at the little intermissions at the movie theater?
I think you'll probably catch one now and then. Like, it strikes me as something Tarantino would do.
Right. Well, like, if we're just letting all the filmmakers just go 3 hours, 15 minutes, it's only going to get worse. They're just going to keep clawing for more and more and more and more minutes, and suddenly it's going to be like all 3 hours 45.
Yeah.
3 hours.
But are you saying because people need to go potty?
Yeah. How about a little bathroom break, a little snack break?
Yeah.
Let everybody go pee-pee.
It made more sense, or it still makes sense, I guess, in the theaters where they don't serve you food and drinks, because like you could go get more popcorn or whatever. I remember as a kid,
how about just a quick sec to look at my phone?
Because you miss it. But I mean, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility, especially as I see more and more directors arguing for longer movies, like that they should be able to do the 3 hours without people like you being so upset.
Yeah. Breathing down their necks.
Yeah, I sit somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But this one, I have no idea how long it was. It felt like 3+ hours because it's just a strange film. So for the sake of comparison, Star Wars came out in 1977, the first Star Wars, A New Hope. And obviously when people think of like outer space and intergalactic travel and spaceships fighting and shooting lasers, pew, 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 they think of Star Wars.
Yeah, galaxies far, far away.
Exactly. But this movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey, precedes it, and you could probably argue looks even better. But I'm sure this has been said a million times. I'm not like some big 2001: A Space Odyssey nerd. I don't know a whole lot about this, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. But I have to assume there are a lot of people who make the argument that without this film, there is no Star Wars, because it kind of set the stage and the table so that people could do the kind of crazy shit that Kubrick pulled off here. And what you notice when you watch this movie is he knew, like, well, nobody's ever made outer space look tight like this before, or pulled it off to where it looked realistic, or been able to create models of spaceships that actually looked legit. So he spends roughly 45 minutes of the film giving you slow motion, or not really slow motion, but just shots
the
of
visuals.
Yeah,
right?
the spaceship, barely moving across the screen with the backdrop of outer space, and it'll just hover on that for like 15 minutes. And you're just like, this is the most boring thing I have ever seen in my life. But you have to remember that in 1968, this was mind-blowing shit that no one had ever pulled off before. It's just really challenging in 2023 to sit there and watch it unless you're like a crazy film buff and take it seriously, because you're just like, come on, guy, move along the story. We've seen outer space at this point.
I think not only is he showing off the visuals and kind of like the new technology and like the kind of the code that he's cracked there, but this is also one of the first movies of its kind, like you mentioned. And so I think it does, in its original kind of form, aid the storytelling, right? Because it's all about solitude and the depth of space and like the kind of terror of it all.
Absolutely.
And so some of those kind of almost cutscenes where you are just watching the spaceship in like the dead of space.
Yeah.
Is supposed to be that kind of like existential dread, I think, of just the vastness of it all. Like you're saying, now we've seen,
Interstellar,
450
all the Star
other
Wars,
space movies in our lifetimes, and so it's like we kind of understand that concept now a little bit more, and so they probably don't work quite as well. But I think it's been a long time since I've seen 2001, but I feel like it's kind of its biggest legacy. Well, its biggest legacy is probably the score. How does it go? Dun, dun, dun. That thing, right?
It's like the opening for one of the big studios, isn't it? Like, don't they utilize it? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did better than I would have. I'm glad you took the reins there.
But I think like if from the filmmaking side, I feel like the biggest legacy is how well it still holds up visually.
Yeah. It looks incredible.
Like,
I mean,
it still looks good.
We were like, is this remastered?
Yeah.
How is it? Because it really does look amazing. And you also bring up a really good point that it's somewhere in this journey of me watching it over 3 different sittings, because my wife and I kept passing out because we're exhausted with 2 young kids at home. I realized what he was trying to convey with those really long shots of outer space and just the spaceship and no noise. And you're spot on. It brings that element of horror even more into this movie, where it's like when you swim out real deep into the ocean,
I was just about to say, it's
and
like
then you
deep
suddenly
ocean.
realize,
Yeah.
oh my God, the vastness of what's around me and below me is sort of too much to weigh in my mind.
Yeah.
He really accomplishes that in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you can feel the fear. And then, of course, the movie takes a horrifying turn at some point when it attacks the whole AI thing, which you brought up recently on Patreon as part of this film's legacy as well, because Kubrick was way ahead of the curve in terms of judging how technology would affect us longer term and what it would look like when computers became so smart that they would perhaps gain sentience and start to make decisions, which is obviously one of the biggest talking points in terms of, humanity right now, modern day, present day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of something that 55 years ago, we knew that AI was a potential problem. And we just kept right along.
Just kept doing it.
Kept chugging along.
Just pushing the envelope, seeing what'll happen. I mean, that honestly occurs to me every time I hear another story about it. I'm just like, but we're still going? Like, we know the end of this. A dozen movies have been made showing us our fate if we continue, and yet we can't stop?
We won't stop.
Yeah.
Can't stop, won't stop, as the Young Guns once said.
They did. Yeah. Rockefeller Records. So I got about 1 million messages from people about something related to 2001: A Space Odyssey that did not occur to me and that you and I have not mentioned over the past few weeks somehow. But was there any connection for you? Just, I'm not trying to, I am. I'm trying to bring you in here to the trouble pit with
subject.
me.
Okay.
When you saw Barbie, was there any...
Oh yeah, the monolith, monolith at the beginning.
Didn't know.
When Barbie is,
Hadn't a clue.
They might even be using the music that I just referenced.
They did. They 100% did. But I remember I'm in Barbie. I've never seen 2001: A Space Odyssey at this point. I'm in Barbie.
Yeah.
I'm watching the opening sequence and I'm going, okay, this is from something.
Yeah.
But then my little tired pea brain, when I watched I swear to God, the reason I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey is probably because I saw mentions of it as a result of Barbie. I failed to put any of this together. I'm watching the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's shot for shot.
Right.
Incredible homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey that Greta Gerwig pulled off there.
Yep.
And now I've seen an Instagram video where they're side by side. It shows you, and it's sick. Like, she went all out, copying it shot for shot.
When the little girls are breaking the dolls and smashing them, what are the monkeys doing? Are they just breaking their tools?
They're jumping around the monolith and freaking out. Actually, the part you're referencing is an homage to the scene where the monkey figures out how to create a tool. He's standing over a bunch of bones, and then he picks one up and holds it, and then he just starts smashing the rest of the bones with that. And then, but that's another piece of 2001: A Space Odyssey. The first fucking half hour, not a single word is said, and it's like the dawn of man. And you're watching these monkeys figure out tools and then fight with other monkeys over a watering hole. And the monkeys, of course, you start to realize a few minutes in, aren't monkeys. They're human beings wearing monkey suits.
Are you sure?
Yes, 100% now.
And
they're apparently, this was a huge part of how it took Kubrick forever trying to figure out how to create these monkeys. And they were mimes. Mimes. Doing the box around the head mimes.
Yeah.
It says he auditioned actors, dancers, and even comedians to potentially perform the parts, and initially hired some guy named Richter to simply choreograph the sequence. Instead, Kubrick hired Richter to be the main ape and tasked him with recruiting 20 other mimes to be the apes.
Classic mime
But
behavior.
when you watch it, you're like, this is unbelievable because they're so spot on. Like they really do move and look exactly like apes, but they're of course human beings wearing ape costumes, which became a problem in China recently at one of their zoos as a result of sun bears. Have you ever seen a sun bear? It looks like a human wearing a bear costume.
Okay.
And people in China were accusing the zoo of having people in bear costumes instead of having real bears, to the point that the Chinese zoo had to let the press in to like come and scope it out so they could prove like, no, these are real. Okay. We've got real bears.
Sun
Anyway,
bears.
Yeah,
right.
sun bears, really interesting cats, but they're bears. So I got all these messages from people like, you buffoon, did you not know the opening of Barbie was an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey? And I felt, frankly, quite foolish.
I knew it when I saw it both times. I just didn't connect the dots that we were talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey and failed to make the connection. So, our bad.
Yeah, no, but that was very much if you've seen Barbie and you haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey and you were wondering what the deal was with the opening, it is a complete and total copy, almost scene for scene, obviously, in a respectful way.
Yeah,
like,
I think you nailed it with homage. It's an homage for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, my wife didn't love this one. I'm now Stanley Kubrick. She's completely out on, I think, because one of my favorite movies is Eyes Wide Shut. And I try to put that on every once in a while, and she gets upset. Yeah.
You would just, when you get H on the TL, you're just like, I got to throw on Eyes Wide Shut.
It's not that horny of a movie for me. I realize it's very sexy at some points, but like, I just like the movie. I don't know why. It's the pacing or something. Not the nudity.
You're also you love The Shining too, right?
I do love The Shining, yeah. See, so I just like his shit, man.
What about, is it One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Clockwork Orange? Are they both Kubrick movies?
I'm not sure if One Flew is. Let me double check. But Clockwork Orange is one of those movies you watch like one time, though. Like, I can't wait to rewatch that one. One Flew is a different dude.
Okay.
Milos Forman, it looks like. But I do love that movie.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the Kubrick oeuvre is kind of like that. It's kind of watch once and you've added it to your film buff vocabulary, essentially.
Yeah.
I think Shining is different. I think The Shining is probably...
Oh, it's like a Halloween rewatch for me.
Right. Yeah. I think
Every
Shining
October.
is maybe the most rewatchable. Maybe Eyes Wide Shut falls in that category as well. But like, I'm not going and watching... I'm not rewatching Full Metal Jacket.
No. Absolutely not.
Either. So...
Yeah, it's heavy, dark, weird. He made weird movies, man.
Definitely a trailblazer. As far as filmmakers go.
Oh yeah,
but definitely was making very filmy stuff, and so it's
I'm glad I got this
Unless
one
you're
done.
a real film nerd, it's like you usually don't need to go back to these.
I needed it in my repertoire. I think I can reference it. And now I've got it.
I think Kubrick famously never won an Oscar.
Really?
Never won a directing Oscar.
That's absurd.
Yeah,
absurd. As a big Kubrick head, I'll say that. Absurd. Anyway, finished 2001: A Space Odyssey. Got it under my belt now, and I'm stoked.
What does Hal say? What's like a famous Hal line? You got one?
Hal?
Hal, right? Isn't that the
Hal?
Hal.
H-A-L.
Hal. Yes.
He's like, I'm sorry, sir. I can't do that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Which is like, now that I've seen it, I'm like, there's so many references to this and different things I've watched over the years that I never knew.
Smart House, the Disney Channel movie. Right?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking
of.
Who
could forget?
Anyway, we'll move on. As my wife well knows, I am utterly and completely worthless in the kitchen. That's why I rely on today's sponsor, Factor, to keep myself fueled up and ready to rock with wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track. Too busy to cook but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back outside and enjoy the cooler weather as we get into fall here finally. Or, sometimes you need something good to eat while you enjoy your favorite shows from the couch. Factor is that. Looking for some calorie-conscious options during the busy season? Try delicious dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals with around or less than 550 calories per serving. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice as well. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. This September, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. So if you're living life on the fly, could not more highly recommend Factor. It's time to sign up for Factor with our special offer just for members of the Clam fam. Head to factormeals.com/OCC50 and use code OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code OCC50 at factormeals.com/OCC50 to get 50% off your first box. All right, Barrett and I both finished What We Do in the Shadows Season 4.
Oi.
Yep. And we're going to take the time to discuss that a little bit now.
Season 5.
Season 5, excuse me.
Yeah.
Season 4 was the weird Colin Robinson
baby as a baby
reborn one that we had some concerns about. All right, I haven't gotten to talk to you about it yet. So, like, what were your thoughts and feelings when you got through the finale?
So,
and there's going to be some spoilers here. It's unavoidable that we do some spoilers here.
Yes, spoilers going forward for What We Do in the Shadows Season 5. Well, first I'll just say that I think overall the show has lost its fastball a little bit. I think that much is quite clear.
I think that's fair to say.
There were some great episodes this season that we mentioned a few weeks back. Some ones that I really quite liked. But even those kind of had to like stretch themselves into something new a little bit to kind of achieve the same the same returns, the same level, if you will.
Yeah, it doesn't have the novelty it once did.
Yeah.
This show.
So after the you mentioned an episode which you felt negatively about, which was the one where a bunch of hybrid animal Guillermos are made by Laszlo.
Yeah, that was really it was like just a little too weird and outrageous.
And I didn't feel quite the same. I like it didn't totally work for me, but I don't think I hated it or disliked it as much as you did. But then the next couple of episodes, I was really left.
It got wobbly.
Kind of wanting.
Mm-hmm.
I think the finale did a nice job of putting the pieces back together. But here's the thing. The finale also, to do that, had to reset itself.
Yeah, this was upsetting to me.
And so it was kind of disappointing that, and obviously, let's just get the spoiler out of the way here. What we're talking about is the kind of the through storyline of the season, which is that Guillermo finally takes it upon himself to go get turned into a vampire by somebody that is not his master.
Derek.
And becomes kind of like a hybrid himself and is kind of a half vampire, but his vampire killer Van Helsing blood is like not allowing the full transformation to take effect. So that's played to varying degrees of laughs.
Yeah.
In the finale, they return him to human form, which is not something that we knew was possible.
Nope.
Kind of pulled out of a hat.
Felt a little cheated here.
And so it's like, my guess is that they knew they were always going to bring him back to his human form, but I think that they, after watching what they did with him as a half vampire, I am glad that they did return him to human form, but I did feel a little like I just felt a little underwhelmed because this was kind of something that
the show is literally about him wanting to be a vampire. That was the setup from episode 1.
Right. It's kind of, there's not really a will they or won't they in this series. That's it. That's the will they or won't they.
Yeah.
And so it really just kind of landed with like an anticlimactic thud here that he sort of got there. And then as soon as he does go all the way, he can't do any vampire stuff, and so they just flip a switch
and undo it.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing I got frustrated with was you spend an almost entire episode of Laszlo, really this is a few episode story arc, Laszlo doing experimentations trying to figure out why Guillermo is not fully vampire, why he hasn't all the way turned. Then within 2 seconds of Nandor finding out what's happening, he says, well, obviously his Van Helsing blood is fighting off the vampire blood, and it's not allowing him to turn all the way. And I was like, well, Laszlo's a moron. How come he knew that immediately? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then they give you this side out of like, well, the only thing you have to do is we'll kill Derek, and then that'll unvampire you. But it's like they got into this a couple different ways this season, talking about like with the sire and
the Baron.
The Baron.
Yeah.
Like how if they kill the Baron, well, then they're all dead because he's there. I didn't realize it was like a domino effect. Like you kill the vampire that made you, and then suddenly you're dead too. Like where the fuck did that rule come from?
But apparently that's not the rule, right? Because Guillermo didn't die.
Yeah, but I think that's because he wasn't all the way turned or something. Anyway, the point is they introduced these loopholes to get themselves out of the storyline, which pretty much made the whole season mook, where you're like, well, so nothing happened. Now, I will say this, the message of like Guillermo always thought he wanted to be a vampire, but then it's too heavy for him, like he basically can't do it. Mm-hmm. I get it. It's not like a nonsensical point, but it felt so hollow when you think about the whole season and the whole show, the 5-season run they've been on, where it's like that was always, I mean, I imagined there would be a point where he would get turned, right? And then like the next season after that would be him as a vampire, and that would be kind of interesting. But it seems like what happened is in the writer's room, they went through this like, okay, let's say he's a vampire now. What do we do next season? Right. And they couldn't really come up with anything to justify the turning him, so they undid it.
Well, and Laura made a good point when we finished the show, the series, or the season last night, and she said, "Well, it's not," because I was kind of like I was struggling with the fact that they kind of went back on it. And she said, "But that's not him. It's not in his nature, which is the point." And so that made a little. That's kind of where I landed was like, okay, so sure, I feel that kind of what you're saying that the writers probably went through themselves is like Guillermo doesn't, it's not actually in him.
Yeah. Because we got that one scene where he's like, I am vampire. And he's like, let's go hunt or whatever. And he's acting like a totally different person, sort of. Yeah.
It all, like, I almost kind of wish they hadn't gone here in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, if that's kind of the conclusion, then it almost would have been a funnier bit and a gag to just kind of string us along forever.
Yeah.
With that.
Then actually have it be this weird situation.
Or even leave, even leave the turning of him until a final season, maybe a few episode story arc.
Like a big climax.
Or that's kind of how they end with something like that. But I don't know.
Because now what?
Yeah, so I think next season is going to be the last season.
If it exists. I mean, if they
I believe it was renewed after season 4 for 2 seasons.
Okay.
So I think they got an order for season 5 and 6, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they're definitely getting next season already.
Yes, it was greenlit in 2022.
Yeah, and so like honestly, it's obviously very hard to capture the original magic, but nobody is gone from this show. They have not lost Michael Scott. And like I hope for the final season that they try to return to some of the original form, like not to be crass, but like where are Laszlo and Nadia just like going off and like fucking again?
Yeah,
like some of the funny kind of like their little kooky relationship has kind of been sidelined a little bit. It's referenced and mentioned, but they don't really do much with it.
Right.
Another piece of this season was that. Kristen Shaw, the woman, the girl that plays the guide, was added to main cast.
Yeah.
As you'll have noted from the intro. Don't know why. I've got a lot of time for her. She was really funny in Flight of the Conchords. Loved her side character in 30 Rock. She's funny with the thing that she does, but like it was not necessary in any of this season, and they wedged her in there to be like a little bit of a foil or a little bit of like
something new,
like a new punching bag essentially that wasn't Guillermo, and it just felt like the whole end storyline where like she's mad that they're not including her in the group, so she So she tricks them all.
Sets up a murder mystery deal. Traps them in cages.
Okay, did we add her to the main cast just for this last 2 episodes, or did you write that story because you added her to the main cast and now you needed something for her to do?
See, that's the problem. Is I feel like there's all this justification limbo taking place here, where it's like I couldn't figure out why certain things were done. And to be frank, I enjoyed the guide this season. I thought she kind of came into her own and filled this slot that made sense, and adding a new member to the squad was sort of something that I think they inevitably would have to do, and she was probably the best choice. And I like you said, I've seen her in a bunch of other stuff too. She's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, like her awkwardness and humor, because it's so repetitive. I felt like she grew into a new version of it this season on What We Do in the Shadows, but in the end, her whole purpose was just as part of this larger sort of storyline that was going to get undone anyway, and that bummed me out because it was kind of all for naught. And I don't know, it would have made, going into the finale, I was like, man, this is going to be wild. Nandor's, how is he going to take it when he finds out what happened, etc. And for them to undo everything they did, I was very surprised. I didn't see it coming, and not the good kind of surprise, because the first thing I asked myself was, well, now what? What do you do with season 6? Because this is 2 seasons in a row they've relied on a storyline driving whatever device that gets completely reversed.
Right.
They kill Colin Robinson, they bring him back as a baby, and now he's just Colin Robinson again, and it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
They turn Guillermo into a vampire with Derek, this doofus fucking baby vampire who doesn't even know what he's doing, and which did, even as a viewer, I was like, that's some disrespectful shit. To Nandor. I was like, that's not cool, man. And then they undo it by the end of the season. It's just well, that can't be how the show operates, because everybody's going to lose interest. And look, I love this show. It's really, really funny. In the first few seasons, I thought it was genius level, up there with The Office and Parks and Rec style humor. And I loved the quirkiness of it, and all the different curveballs that this show threw into that formula with the vampires and the werewolves and all the different shit. And obviously none of them being real, they're not Americans. They all come from different areas except for Guillermo. I loved all that. And then somewhere along the way, the formula just got kind of wonky. And it's
Colin Robinson is an American.
Oh yeah, Colin Robinson, very American for sure. But they they ran out of good ideas or something, and this does feel like at this point a show that has been strung along for a couple seasons too long.
Yeah. I was thinking, one of the things that you kind of mentioned there that I was thinking about last night when I finished is the comparison of this show to The Office, and not that they necessarily need to be compared, but they are similarly formatted shows in the mockumentary style.
Yes,
and you can bring up Parks and Rec or a number of other shows as well to kind of throw in there as comparison. But
The Office is the OG though.
The thing about The Office, and one of the big differences here, and the reason why The Office could be 24 episodes a season and What We Do in the Shadows is only 10,
right,
is because The Office as a relatable environment to its viewers is essentially has a never-ending supply of stories and things that you can do and make and that makes sense to people.
Corporate America,
because almost
setting.
all of us have experience in an office, or at the very least working with other people. So that's an already an obstacle that What We Do in the Shadows kind of has to overcome, right? Is that none of this is relatable to us. It's the humor is in the farce of it, that these people that we're watching are clueless,
right?
Essentially,
yeah.
And so I feel like they moved to these through lines for the seasons because they needed some type of anchor. They didn't feel good about just continuing the cluelessness for the sake of cluelessness.
Man, but I loved that
of the 4 characters, and it's I kind of wish that they would go back to that, because tons and tons of shows reset weekly, not just by the season, right? Jerry Seinfeld has a new girlfriend every single week.
Yeah.
South Park killed Kenny every single episode for 10 seasons.
Yeah, Family Guy would routinely do shit that they just undid after the fact.
Right, yes. But it's weird, but it does, it's a little weirder in a show that is doing something for a season and then resetting, because you're invested over 10 episodes, not 27 minutes. And that hasn't been what the show does, is just hit the reset button every episode, and whatever happened last episode isn't the same. It didn't really happen or doesn't matter anymore. So it does feel a little, yeah, I hate saying the word cheated because I don't feel cheated by this show, and I still enjoyed it and like it and will watch the next season. But it does, yes, something is just not quite hitting right about these last 2 seasons and kind of what they attempted.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I was real upset about last season. Just it wasn't just that I didn't like the Colin Robinson storyline. It was also that it wasn't as funny to me. This season was back to the level of humor I expect, where most of the episodes, most of them, I had multiple big laugh moments where I was like, that is fucking hysterical. I love this shit. But then for the story to just lose me again was devastating because I'm like, now I feel like they have to know they're done. Like they have to know this is it. Like you got one more in you, fine. But please, you can't draw this out any longer because once you abandon just the nonsensical, every episode is insanity, there is no through storyline nature of the show, which they did abandon after 3 seasons, there's kind of no going back. Like maybe you get one more, like you're saying, like you hit the reset button this season, fine. And now next season can be like one last hurrah. But like they abandoned the biggest asset they had, which is that the whole time we're always wondering, well, is Guillermo going to get Nandor to turn him into a vampire?
Right.
Will there be a happy ending where he is part of the vampire crew for real?
Yeah.
And now I don't know what this next season can possibly attack or try to approach because it's like they just took that from us. Yeah. So now what? He's out, and now what's the show about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think what they've signaled is that they will try to head towards some type of change in the conclusion. And I remember after season 3, when it seemed like they were going to all split and go overseas and do these different things, we felt kind of excited about that.
Yeah, be something new.
Okay, get out of this vampire house, out of New Jersey, like shake the scenery up a little bit.
Right.
And then immediately when we came back in season 4, they had done exactly what they do, which is been like, oh no, nobody's going anywhere.
Everybody's back in the house.
Everybody's back in the house by one story or another, and Colin Robinson is a baby now, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I would like to maybe see, and maybe a storyline that I can see happening is like for some reason they're going to have to leave this house in New Jersey. You know, they're going to have to leave. They're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, there has to be an ending
because there's or I think the alternative to that is to go back to the original formula and just do kind of one last kind of, farcical hurrah, keep everybody in the house, and like the only thing that changes is that everything stays the same or whatever you want to, however you want to frame that. But yeah, look, I definitely will watch next season. There are still some episodes that are really, really good. And but I do think that feels like the writer's room is scratching their heads for ideas a little bit.
Yeah, which is disappointing because, I mean, I can't think of a funnier show on TV that I was looking forward to than What We Do in the Shadows. And I loved the ride, man. It just they were always kind of going to be up against it when it came to figuring out how to close this thing out and keep it going and stretch it for more seasons. And
some stuff is really only meant for 3 seasons, or for a limited number of seasons. Look at Arrested Development, right? Like almost like they got kind of blessed that they were canceled after 3 in a way.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Because, I mean, comedy is difficult. You got your shtick, your things that make it funny. Mm-hmm. Keep doing them until suddenly it's like, oh, we're kind of out. That's it. There's no more. There's no way to do it even further. So, there was a wild season. All in all, I had a lot of fun with it. I mean,
you have no idea where they were going to try to go after they attempted the Charlize Theron Mr. F storyline.
Yeah, that was.
We all turned a blind eye to that storyline, but it was there in season 3.
Mr. F. Such a weird move in general from the writers there in Arrested Development. But that's kind of what it felt like doing the Colin Robinson baby thing. Like they just throw out dumb shit, like that's funny, dumb funny, and then they all rocked with it for a whole fucking season. So when it was all said and done, which season did you like better between 4 and 5? 5. This season I liked more because I was so off-put by the CGI Colin Robinson baby.
I do think that this was a better season.
But I thought that mutant Guillermo shit reminded me too much of Colin Robinson's situation, and I was like, do not want to go back.
Yeah.
Please no.
So you were pretty upset when they brought back some of the farm animals into the to the finale.
No, that made me laugh. But at that point, I was in. I was like, okay, this is fucking hilarious. They're calling him daddy and shit. Yeah, that was outrageous.
The bulldog that is just spouting off psychobabble stuff. And
one of them is like a philosophical adult for some reason.
Yeah.
No, I mean, all in all, like I said, man, the show has all the pieces still. I don't know why they have to do the stuff that makes the audience feel a little, I'll still use the word cheated, because that is still how I felt when they took away when they introduced the loophole at the end. I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, I thought they were going to set up for this big conflict between Nandor and...
I mean, I knew that Nandor was not going to kill Guillermo.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. That would have been... The show is over if that happens, and everybody's really weirded out by what they just watched. But to see it get completely undone...
Yeah.
And Derek becoming a zombie?
Okay, I actually liked Derek becoming a zombie.
Because it felt like he had a place now and friends. I was happy for him, but I was still weirded out. I didn't know you could go from vampire to zombie.
Yeah, one, bringing back what's-his-face, Trip, or whatever it was, from, who's now just hanging out in the zombie lair.
Yeah.
But has learned to speak like a normal person again.
I liked that.
Like, there were just there were some funny gags there, and Derek is a character that we don't really care about. We're not invested in Derek. So it's like to kill him and then turn him into a zombie and then have the bit going where he's doing the zombie voice and is super stoked to go join the zombie brigade down in the dungeons, all kind of just that was good absurdist comedy right there for me. And so I didn't mind that they were just oh, Derek's not dead either. We're bringing his ass back.
Best episode of the season was probably Local News. That was hysterical.
Yeah, I think that was the best one. Yeah.
The Patton Oswalt episode was good. Okay, I couldn't remember. Isn't Patton Oswalt, doesn't he have a running bit where he's a guest on a show and his character always dies? I'm pretty sure that's him.
Okay.
Which they did here. Patton Oswalt plays himself and then dies in the episode or whatever. Pride Parade was good. The roast was almost good, almost great, but it was just bizarre how, what's his name? Not Sire.
Baron
ends up getting upset and wrecking the whole thing, basically. Yeah, all in all, good season. Weird ending for me.
Yeah.
That kind of undid some of the goodness of it all. So hopefully they figure out an angle for season 6 and we can talk about it when it drops. Sounds like in 2024. Only other thing I had for today, my wife is watching Wheel of Time season 2.
Okay.
And she was basically sold me on it. She was like, it's like Lord of the Rings meets Dune with a little bit of Game of Thrones. And I was like, okay, that sounds like bullshit, but whatever. And I watched the first couple episodes.
She just literally named your 3 favorite things.
Just the shit I love whatever, made some amalgamation of it. But it's kind of true. There is some Duniness to it and some Lord of the Rings. I don't know about Game of Thrones. But I watched the first couple episodes. And after I finished episode 1, I remember having tried to watch it when it first came out and kind of failing or walking away. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of into it, but it's very much it's how everybody was trying to replicate Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They were all like, oh, we can do a fantasy show that'll bring in just as many people or whatever. But you can feel how it's a level below. Mm-hmm. That's where it's at for me, where I'm like, this is good. It's the story has to be paying attention, and that's the most important thing here.
And are you lost by not having watched season 1?
No, that's what I'm saying. I've started it from season 1.
Oh, okay.
Season 1, episode 1. So now I'm 2 in, and I like it, and I'm going to keep watching it just because, the drought. But I'll have to see if it elevates itself from where it's at, which is kind of in the middle of the road, very well made, visually pretty cool. A little bit too much magic for my taste. The main chick is basically like Gandalf on steroids. She can just fuck. Have you seen any of this?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it's enjoyable. But it's some fantasy shit. It's fantastical.
I think I'm going to finally. I mentioned Lioness, which I genuinely do intend to start here pretty soon, and then I think I'm going to fire up Winning Time season 2.
You're going to do it?
I'm going in. I'm going in. Yeah,
I'll go in
because I think that because Laura really likes Winning Time, and generally doesn't like watching sports. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna try to do some Inception types thing where
Yeah.
it's like, no, you're enjoying sports. You're enjoying sports.
Good. Yes. This way, by the time the Rockets are actually good again, she'll be cool with basketball.
Right.
Because when
right.
basketball season rolls around, you can be like, hey, remember winning time?
Yeah.
This is just like that.
Yeah.
Minus all of the storylines and just the sport.
Yeah. So, but yeah, keep in touch with us. Let us know what you're watching. Look, I'm not there's some I have a really hard time for whatever reason. I feel like this has been a major through line of OCC is that we know that there are hives out there for all of the other fantasy shows.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to start Foundation. Sorry.
I can't do it either.
And
People keep asking me why I'm not sold on it. I'm like, because you haven't done it. You haven't sold me on it,
There's another one. What's the other one that there's a couple of them that people.
Well, pretty much every Apple TV show at this point.
Yeah.
Every Apple TV Plus show
The
has been thrown at us.
Expanse was an ongoing one that people constantly wanted us to
For
jump
years.
in on. And I understand, like they all have big fandoms because they're world building shows, and that's like always kind of like not a hack, but that engages people because we like it when worlds are built. I will say one other thing I'll just throw out there. Don't know when it's coming out. But there is a show on Netflix coming sometime at some point in the future that's based on a series of books called The Three Body Problem.
Okay.
And these books are supposed to be very, very good. I believe that they were written in Chinese. And I might be wrong there. Sorry. But
I can look it up.
But while you look it up, I'll mention that they're much like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's a Chinese writer.
Yeah, they have historically been thought of as unadaptable.
Okay.
Yeah, but the concept sounds really, really interesting, and I might actually buy the first book to just kind of like start diving in. But that is, I'm just putting that on the radar as potentially the next like kind of sci-fi-ish type show that I can see myself like really engaging with and jumping in on because I think it sounds pretty tight. Tight. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Barrett and I will be back later this week on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. If you are looking for more OCC or looking for something to watch during the drought, we do an exclusive ad-free episode every week driven by hotline calls from our supporters on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. If you've never watched The Sopranos or you want to do a rewatch, we have a companion podcast friendly to both first-timers and rewatchers for every single episode of The Sopranos. And Patreon finally made a thing called Collections, which makes it super easy for you to find every episode of The Sopranos, and they did this the week after I spent like 8 hours going through and sorting it myself. So that was fun. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles is where you'll also find all of our bonus coverage of Silo, Succession, The Last of Us, House of the Dragon, The White Lotus. So if you're looking for things to watch and you're kind of lost at the moment like we are, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Get in there. We also have a bunch of different movie reviews. That's where Oppenheimer lives, for example. Barrett and I's Oppenheimer discussion, not the movie itself. That's obviously Christopher Nolan and whatever movie studio's property. But we've watched a bunch of movies over the years and done reviews of them. They were also on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, so you can get in there, see which movies we did, watch one of them, listen to the podcast that goes with it. Have yourself a grand old time. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Also, we would appreciate it if you would support our sponsors by using our dedicated URLs and codes. That is the other way we pay the piper here at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, other than our Patreon supporters. So today we had factormeals.com/OCC50, code OCC50 to get 50% off your first box of Factor meals. Thank you to Factor for your support. Links and codes for today's sponsor in the description of this episode below. If you're an F1 fan, go to check out Formula Bone, Bolin Media's premier F1 programming from Formula Bone at youtube.com/@FormulaBone, where over 100,000 F1 fans are subscribed to listen to Jared Borislow talk about F1 every single week with a recap and a preview for each race, every single race that is done all F1 season long. Check me out on the Ross Bolin podcast. Follow Barrett at Barrett Dudley on Twitter, or I got X and Instagram and Threads to keep up with what else Barrett does, and at WR Bolin to follow me on social media. We'll see y'all on Patreon later this week. Until then, peace.